Well, hello. Well, yeah, this is Texas cooking today. So what am I doing? Okay, what I'm doing is I'm listening to the dogs bark. I'm establishing a new garden. This is something that's not brand new to me. I've been doing gardening since I was a little kid. I started this, I think, when I was 5 or 6 years of age. And so I learned how to grow plants and how to do vegetables and so forth and so on, and got pretty good at it. Well, it's been a long time since I've had a patch of ground that I could say, hey, this is mine, and that I could do what I want to with. Now, right now, I'm using a shovel, and I'm cutting out the beds for this garden. This will be a walk-in vegetable garden that'll be boundaried, as you've already seen, with some wire. And what I'm doing right now is just removing this old grass. I got a bunch of old Bermuda grass. And, so what I'm doing is I'm getting out all of the harder to deal with parts of the grass, reclaiming the soil, and which is very rich, by the way. This is great soil. And anyway, when I'm done, I'm going to have some beautiful beds here, and I'm going to show you everything that I grow. We're just going to do this from the very beginning, so you get to share it with me. This is something I haven't done in ages, and if you've ever wondered, okay, what's involved in doing this? I don't know, I don't understand. Well, here it is. Here's where it starts. You find a spot on the ground, you mark it out, and you make plans. In this case, I measured out a pretty sizable spot. My side bed here is 15 feet. And this whole garden is 18 feet this way and 11 feet this way. And it provides me some beautiful proportions. I've got a 2-foot bed here, another 2 foot in the back, and some 4-foot wide beds in the middle, with an aisle here and a couple of other aisles running in between. And that's what you'll see in time here. So I'm busy cutting out the beds. I try to make my beds either 2 feet or 4 feet wide, depending on if I'm working it only from one side or from both sides. That's the difference. The length of the bed just depends on the size of the area that you've picked out. I have purchased a lot of stuff I'm growing, and it will not all fit in this bed. But much of it I'll grow in this area. I purchased about 30 different types of items that we're going to be growing here. And I'm doing this because I wanted to do a ground to table series for a very, very long time. And I thought, okay, this is a good chance to do that. And so that's exactly what's going on here. And so I'm extracting the old grass. Now, I'm not throwing this grass away, by the way. No, 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 no. No, I don't throw this away. I set it aside and let it dry out. Okay, I let the sun just bake it. And once it's dry and it kills that grass, it then gets used as mulch. Okay, plain and simple. So I've got a whole bunch of mulch that I'm forming at the same time that I'm removing grass from my beds. And it works very, very well. There are new gardening methods if you're thinking about doing your own bed. They call it a no-till method of establishing a bed, and that's all right. I've looked at some different ones, but I don't really like doing gardening that way. I learned it this way as a child, and I just still do it. Once you've cleared the ground of what you're not looking for, it's much easier to work with, and then you can do so much more with it without fighting or doing special little projects or items to make it work. You simply have good, clean beds to grow in. And as the year goes on, you know, weeds will crop up and grasses will crop up in the bed, and that's not a problem. Because you tilled it, the soil becomes loamy and soft, and it's easy to work. And as a result of that, it's easy to get weeds and grasses and stuff like that out of it, because they're not anchored in anything solid. So that's how I do that. I've already cut this bed out, and I started by just plunging a shovel straight down all the way around the perimeter. of what I wanted, which is 2 feet this way, and this bed is a little over 8 feet wide on the one I'm working. This is going to be my herb and spice bed. So I'll be growing garlic here, I'll be growing chives and basil and oregano and thyme and tarragon and all that. And a lot of that are going to be right here in this bed. Starting with the short ones on this side and building up. So thyme is real low growing, so is oregano, and they'll be right here. And then a little taller than that are chives. So some chives and cilantro. Some green, some garlic right there. Yeah, lots of stuff will be here. There's also going to be stuff throughout other beds on this same property. This is just going to be the primary vegetable garden, the #1 garden. There will be pepper plants, tomato plants, cabbage, leeks, and some of these are winter vegetables, fall and winter, and I'm wanting to get them in ASAP. So I have to get these things cleaned up, worked out, and ready to go as soon as I can. This is already September and we're halfway through it, and I'm still working my soil. I should already be putting seed in the ground. Do I do a lot of fancy, well, what would I say, fancy gardening? It's not fancy. Do I do starts? Well, I was thinking of starting to do starts. I've never done starts before, but I'm thinking of doing that this year since I have the space to do some hothouse kind of things. And so I'm going to do a hot box, and we'll fix it up with some artificial lighting for winter days and get things up and going on some vegetable starts. That way my tomatoes and things like that have a head start. You can always go and purchase them already done that way. That is doable. There we are. So after I cut my garden all the way around the perimeter, I then came in with my shovel and made cross cuts this way, loosening up the soil so I could take it and just pull out that grass like this and lift it out in strips, and it's been much easier that way. I'm not fighting it. The garden area behind me doesn't have a lot of grass in it, so I'm not going to have a lot to deal with there. But these outer two that I've done so far, I knew were going to be a lot of work, so I had to jump in the middle of it. I ran into a lot of earthworms, so that's a very good sign of good quality rich soil. So there's a lot of worm castings within the soil as well. That makes it healthy. Now my garden, I've been trying to find the equipment to do gardening without as much pest control. In other words, I don't like to use a lot of chemicals to control weeds or pests and things like that. So the weed part, that's me getting in the garden. I'm taking care of it. Pest control is a net, so I need to get a fine net that helps to keep bugs out as well as birds. Because one thing I've learned is that birds love lettuce. And I learned a long time ago you have to really defend against those. Otherwise they'll eat all of it and you'll have none of it. So things I'm going to get in the ground, also some lettuce. Lettuce does well in the fall. So does leeks. We're going to get some leeks in the ground. Spinach is one of the best cold hardy crops that you can do. That's very, very cold hardy. And it'll be one of the things that you can take in the latest. And then the thing of it is like, if some of my stuff doesn't get full size, it doesn't matter. I don't mind eating baby lettuce. I love it, in fact. Or the microgreens, what comes up that's just too small, that won't survive the cold. Go ahead and pluck those. Then you have microgreens to enjoy. It's cool. Root crops often will survive well into the cold of winter as long as it's not below 32 for too long. And like your carrots will just, they will keep quite well in the ground. So that's what I've done in the past. That's what I still do. Now I'm gonna try some new things this year. I've never done container potatoes. I've always wanted to, just never tried it. So now that I have the space and the time, container potatoes it will be. All right. Now, a lot of this didn't have any grass in it, so it's really easy to work like that. The dog is enjoying. She's plucking through for grubs. There have been a few grubs, not many. Nothing I have any problems contending with. There's also going to be a lot of other stuff next year. Like I said, I've got 30 different options that I purchased, 30 different types of seeds. Well, actually, it was 27 seeds, but a few other things are things that I plant in a different way, like garlic. I just use the cloves of garlic. If I was going to do pinto beans, I'm not going to go out and buy pinto seeds. They're just beans. You go to the grocery store and you buy some. Now, if you're smart, you purchase some that grow in another country. Because if they are from the United States, and let's say it's a bean that Monsanto came up with, then they'll put a terminator gene in there, which prevents the beans from growing a vine that will produce seed. The vine will still grow, it just won't ever produce. And it's a terminator gene that they use on genetically modified foods. So some things, you kind of got to be wise about when you're choosing items to grow from the store. So if I were to grow pintos, I would choose like pintos from Mexico or Chile or something like that. And that way I get some pinto beans that are not tainted with genetically modified garbage, okay? Terminator gene, come on, are you serious? That can't be healthy being in our environment. To me, that sounds like a recipe for disaster to me. Like one of those horror movies you hear about where food stopped growing everywhere. It's one of the things I missed the most when I moved to the big city, was the ability to get out and dig in the earth and take this soil right here that I have just tilled and produce some beautiful, delicious crops that later on I want to teach you how to turn into food. We're going to do some garden to table items, and one of them is going to be one's going to be a marinara. We're going to do a spaghetti and marinara, and that the majority of it's going to come from this garden. All of the herbs for the marinara, the tomatoes, the whole bit when it comes to that. And the only thing that I'm going to have to purchase is the flour to make the spaghetti with. That's not a big deal. Just don't have enough room to grow that much wheat. Okay. There we have it. Now you know what's going on. Here's the vegetable patch. This is your introduction to it and to my method of how I grow vegetables. It's really, once you get the beds dug out, this becomes a much easier process. So as I've been setting up this garden and I've been digging out my beds, of course I'll just cut out the border of the bed like so and extract the grass and any weeds that are there. So what I'm doing here is, this is a till method, and it's my favorite method, and I like this because it really gives you incredibly good results. Now I've already cut these edges and all of this. All I'm doing now is just kind of loosening this, getting out any remaining material that was grasses growing or weeds or whatever, and as soon as they're gone, I'm just flipping the soil. That tilling is really good, and here's why. When you do a till method on the soil, you're aerating the soil. You're changing the way it's going to grow whatever you put there, and you're making it easy on what you plant here and hard on what's growing around it, like this, which will be grass, hard for that grass to get any foothold because you can trim it back so easily. All right. Now, as far as sizing the garden, how I did that. If you'll notice, everything is very meticulously laid out. And I meant for everything to be 2 feet wide on the beds, and I decided it would be okay for the walks also. Well, here's the edge of my garden. I could put this, which is exactly 2 feet long right there, and I know right where to cut my next garden. Okay? It's just that simple. So there is the edge of my next garden, this one here. And I will cut that out all the way over, and I want a 2-foot path here. So again, 2-foot wide block on the edge of my garden, which is right here. Later on, these gardens can have a build-up, and I'll do that, and we'll do what's called raised bed. This is a good way to start that. It cuts the beds and clearly, neatly defines that garden space. All right, 2 feet right here. And of course, these sizes can, in the future, always be adjusted. So what we have here, this is a till method. It works great on establishing gardens. You have clearly delineated paths that makes the gardening easier. The whole thing much easier once you're finished with it. It's a little bit of work invested up front, but you're going to do that work whether you do a no-till method or a till method. I've watched those no-till methods. They're a lot of work. Am I going to amend the soil? You know, sometimes I do that and sometimes I don't. This particular soil is looking so beautiful to me and so rich. It doesn't over-compact. It's nice. It holds moisture well, yet it's loamy enough, loose enough, that it breaks easily. There's a lot of worm castings already in it. I'm going to be mixing in some mulch later. Other than mulch and maybe some peat moss or something similar, I won't be doing much to amend these beds. They just don't need it. Okay? And my vegetables are going to come up big, green, and beautiful. And if I can keep them safe from the bird that you hear over there, then it should be some lovely, wonderful vegetables we see. So that's how I do it. I virtually just, with a shovel, nothing else, cut them out, turn over the soil, and then whether you do it by hand or with a shovel or both, combination, then it works easy. If you're removing heavy sod from the soil, heavy grass, which I did over here, then just sit down, flip the grass over and bend it, and that soil will break loose and fall back and you will get the grass on top, okay? That's all there is to that. So, from there, it's a matter of shape these things, smooth them out, and then get them planted. And planting is simple enough. Make a hole, stick a seed in it, and cover it up. It's planted, then you water. Okay, and that's just a matter of how far do you want things to be spaced. This will be a high impact garden, so they're going to be things very, very close together.